J.D. Vance is a guest on a talk show where pressing issues everyone is curious about will be addressed. Those long-awaited questions and answers will finally come to light today. The dim studio lights set a tense atmosphere. As soon as the cameras roll, host Graham Layton jumps straight in with a sharp question. You once claimed to be a victim of the system, yet now you stand as one of its strongest advocates. Is there an explanation for this, or does power truly change a person? J.D. Vance offers a slight smile, but there's a guarded look in his eyes. He knows this interview won't just be about defending his policies, it will be a test of who he really is. Layton doesn't let up. You promised the workers of Ohio a better future. How close are those promises to reality? People are tired of rhetoric. They want real results. A murmur ripples through the studio audience. They're eager to see where this line of questioning will lead. Vance's voice remains steady and controlled. I'm here to deliver solutions, not slogans. My focus is on strengthening the economy, securing the border, and stopping America's decline. But Layton seizes the moment. And what about Trump? You once harshly criticized him, yet now you're one of his most loyal supporters. Did you change your stance just to stay close to power, or did you genuinely come to believe? A few whispers rise from the audience. Vance had to be expecting this question, but every word he chooses now will be scrutinized. Look, Graham, we have to accept that people can change. America's situation is clear, and I will work with whoever I must to find solutions. Do you care about principles, or do you just care about who you oppose? Layton pushes the tension even higher. You keep saying the American dream is still possible, but for millions, it's just an illusion. Not everyone can escape the poverty you grew up in. Is the system truly fair, or were you just lucky? Vance takes a deep breath, determined not to let frustration show. You can call me lucky, but I believe opportunities still exist in America. I don't deny the challenges, but instead of treating people as victims, I want to inspire them and show them a path forward. As the interview nears its climax, Layton seems to have saved his most critical question for last. Are you really here for the people, or are you just strengthening another ideology? Vance leans back slightly, pausing just long enough to make it clear he's carefully considering his response. If my presence here makes some people uncomfortable, then that means we're asking the right questions. America must move beyond this polarization. And that will only happen if people have the courage to engage in real debate. A few scattered claps emerge from the audience. Layton seems to debate whether to push for one final strike, but something about Vance's unwavering composure makes him hesitate. In the end, who truly won this exchange? The host, the politician, or the lingering questions now planted in the minds of the viewers? This episode of the talk show will serve as a lesson for anyone navigating the fine line between politics, media, and reality. As Graham Layton steps onto the stage, the atmosphere in the studio grows heavier. All eyes are on Vance, waiting to see how he will respond. The tension peaked in the first segment. But now, we're diving into the power struggle that lurks in Washington's shadows. Layton wastes no time pressing Vance. Mr. Vance, when you entered politics, you said Washington's swamp needed to be drained. Yet now, you're deep inside the system. Do you truly believe you've changed this establishment? Or have you simply become a more powerful figure within it? A faint smile flickers across Vance's face. He was expecting this question, but every word of his response is crucial. Being inside the system doesn't mean surrendering to it. I came here to fight for my people. I am still their voice. The ones who have held power in Washington for decades are uncomfortable. I know that. And to me, that's an honor. If standing with the people means losing the support of big corporations and lobbyists, then I know I'm on the right path. Layton doesn't miss a beat, cutting in immediately. But throughout your political career, you've received millions from super PACs and major donors. How is it not a contradiction to criticize Washington's corruption while benefiting from its funding? A murmur ripples through the audience. Vance takes a deep breath before responding. Winning elections in this country requires financial support. What matters is not whose money you take, but whose interests you fight for. I am not with Wall Street. I am with the workers in Ohio, the middle-class Americans. And I will continue to be their voice. Layton's gaze sharpens. But while claiming to stand with the working class, you've supported policies backed by big money. How should Ohio voters interpret that? Vance leans forward confidently. People in Ohio don't judge policies based on what TV commentators say. They judge them by their own lives. If jobs are growing, If their economy is strengthening, if their families can build a better future, then it doesn't matter what critics say. I know where I stand. That's what truly matters. Layton realizes Vance is gaining control of the conversation, so he delivers one final strike to corner him. Then why do so many of your former supporters believe you changed once you got to Washington? They say you've adapted to the system rather than changing it. A low rumble of whispers spreads through the audience. Vance pauses for a moment, then speaks with greater emphasis. People want change, and they expect it to happen overnight. But Washington is the heart of an entrenched system that has been in place for decades. You don't change that in a day. If some think I haven't moved fast enough, I say this. This is a long fight, and I will never give up. Applause erupts from parts of the audience, though some faces remain skeptical. Layton takes a deep breath, preparing for what may be the most critical question of the night. Do you truly believe you can shift the balance of power in Washington? Or is this system simply impossible to change from the inside? Vance looks directly at Layton. If Washington couldn't be changed, I wouldn't be here. But I know real change is only possible with the support of the people. I am not alone. Millions of Americans are in this fight with me, and we won't stop until we win. The audience bursts into strong applause. Layton senses that Vance wants to close this discussion, but he knows it's far from over. In the episodes to come, he will continue to press Vance with even tougher questions. The episode ends with a lingering question in the minds of viewers. Is J.D. Vance truly fighting for the people? Or is he becoming just another figure adapting to Washington's unshakable establishment? Graham Layton sharpens the debate with a sudden turn, revealing his true target, the culture wars. The studio falls silent for a brief moment, everyone wondering how Layton will launch his attack. Without hesitation, he fires his question. Vance, you frequently criticize woke culture, but many believe these debates are just distractions from real economic and social issues. People's real concerns are paying their bills, finding jobs, and living safely. What do culture wars actually contribute to this country? A low murmur spreads through the audience. Vance takes a deep breath, a controlled smile appearing on his face. Graham, people care about how their children are raised, what they're taught in schools, and how their values are shaped. This is just as important as the economy, as border security, maybe even more. If families are concerned, we should be too. And if people are speaking out about it, we must listen. Layton doesn't let the moment slip, raising his voice slightly. But isn't this all just political manipulation? I mean, what does this really accomplish, besides rallying conservative voters? Are you truly speaking for the people, or is this just a strategic move? Vance leans forward slightly, a hint of challenge in his voice. My only goal is to make America's future more secure. If parents are worried about what their children are learning in school, we must listen. If corporations are forcing certain ideologies onto people, we must push back. If you call that a culture war, then yes, I intend to win it. Because this is a battle that will define America's future. The tension in the studio thickens. Murmurs ripple through the audience, some nodding in agreement, others grumbling in disapproval. Layton refuses to let the moment pass. But you present yourself as a champion of freedom. Isn't dictating what people can watch, say, or believe a restriction on that freedom? Or does freedom only apply to those who agree with you? For a split second, Vance's smile fades. He feels the weight of the question. Freedom means individuals and families have the right to make choices based on their values. But what we're seeing here is the forced imposition of an ideology. If children are being told that traditional family values are wrong, if people are ostracized for their beliefs, then freedom is under threat. I'm not telling anyone what to think, but I won't allow millions of Americans to have their values ridiculed or silenced. This time, the audience reacts more strongly. Applause, protests, whispers. Layton doesn't back down. But isn't your definition of freedom one-sided? Do you acknowledge that opposing voices have the same rights as you? Vance leans back in his chair, locking eyes with Layton. This country should be a place where different perspectives are debated, but when a single narrative is being imposed, it's our duty to push back. True American freedom exists only when everyone has an equal voice. But what we see now is the pressure of one-sided conformity. And I will stand against that. The audience erupts in applause, but Layton isn't ready to close the discussion. Tell me, Mr. Vance, do you truly believe you can win this fight? Will you escalate the culture wars, or will you seek compromise? Vance narrows his eyes, his voice firm. "If we want to end division in America, we must first be able to speak the truth. But there can be no compromise when one side is constantly silenced and intimidated. First, we establish equal ground. Then, we can have a real conversation. But one thing is certain. We won't quit this fight until we win." Leighton takes a deep breath. The debate has fully ignited. The studio is charged with energy. This war isn't over yet, and the toughest questions are just beginning. Graham Leighton arrives at the biggest question of the night: the future of Donald Trump and the Republican Party. The tension in the studio tightens instantly. The audience holds its breath, eager to see where this will lead. Locking eyes with Vance, Leighton delivers his question. "Mr. Vance, in 2016, you harshly criticized Trump. You said he was the wrong leader for America, but now you're one of his strongest supporters. Be honest, was this a genuine change of belief or a necessary shift for your political career?" Vance leans forward slightly, weighing the weight of the question. There's a subtle challenge in his gaze. "People can change, Graham. I'll admit, in 2016, I didn't understand Trump. But over time, I saw that he had the courage America needed. He stood with the people despite relentless attacks from the establishment. The ones who opposed him were really just trying to protect the status quo. And through that process, I realized who was truly fighting for the American people." Leighton doesn't back down, pressing in like a predator cornering its prey. "So, did you support Trump for your career? If that's the case, what does that say about your principles?" Vance's smile fades slightly, his voice hardening. "I know exactly where I stand with the American people. If that means working with Trump, I'll do it. If tomorrow someone else presents a better vision, I'll work with them too. It's not about the person, it's about principles and action. I'm not blindly loyal to anyone, but I will stand with any leader who fights for America's best interests." The audience erupts with both applause and murmurs of skepticism. The tension in the studio climbs. Leighton seizes the moment, pushing further. "Yet your critics say you changed positions just to stay close to power. You went from opposing Trump to being one of his most passionate supporters. Is that just a coincidence?" Vance takes a deep breath, as if clarifying something within himself before speaking. "Politics isn't a game where you're forever bound to past positions, Graham. True leadership is about recognizing new realities, responding to the needs of the people, and shaping the future. I don't listen to the status quo, I listen to the people. Trump gave millions of Americans a platform to have their voices heard, instead of being drowned out by Washington elites. That's why I was wrong to oppose him back then. But today, I stand here without compromising my beliefs." Leighton senses that Vance is regaining control of the narrative. He goes for one last move. "Then tell me, is Trump the future of the Republican Party? Do you truly believe his policies will move this country forward?" Vance locks eyes with Leighton, his voice even more resolute. "Trump is a man, a figure. But what truly matters is the movement he represents. The American people are tired of elites in Washington making decisions for them. This movement isn't just about Trump. Whoever stands with the people, whoever fights against the corruption of the system, that's who I'll stand with. The future of the Republican Party will be shaped by leaders who hear the people's demands and take bold action. That is where my loyalty lies." A strong wave of applause ripples through the audience. Yet on some faces, doubt lingers. Leighton recognizes Vance's political skill. He has witnessed his maneuvering, but he hasn't entirely cornered him. As this segment of the interview comes to a close, one question echoes in the air. Did J.D. Vance truly undergo a transformation, or is he simply moving where the wind blows? This segment of the talk show revolves around one of J.D. Vance's strongest subjects, the American working class and the influence of big corporations in politics. But it's clear that Graham Leighton has come prepared with tough questions. The studio is heavy with silence, the tension thickening by the second. The audience sits motionless, anticipation hanging in the air. The camera zooms in, capturing every strained expression, every flicker of unease. Leighton strikes first, his opening move aggressive. "Mr. Vance, in your book Hillbilly Elegy, you gave a voice to the struggles of the working class. But the policies you now support grant billion-dollar tax breaks to major corporations by further opening the doors of Washington to lobbyists. Haven't you abandoned the very people you claim to represent?" Vance knew this question was coming. He leans forward slightly, his expression calm, his tone firm but composed. "Graham, the system in Washington has ignored the working class for decades. Big corporations, global capital, tech giants, they've all cast aside the American worker. I am not the one who abandoned them. The system did. Yes, I believe in capitalism, but in fair capitalism. If corporations refuse to protect American workers and only chase profits, then we must take a stand. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm ready for this fight. Despite Vance's confidence, Layton fires back without hesitation. Sharper this time, more direct. But what about you, Mr. Vance? Throughout your Senate career, you've accepted millions in donations from major corporations. Are you really an advocate for the people, or are you just using power for your own benefit? The tension in the studio spikes. There's movement in the audience, now some whispering, others shaking their heads. All eyes turn to Vance. The faint smile on his face fades, but his determination doesn't waver. He leans back slightly, pauses for a moment, then exhales before responding. Graham, corporations can donate to my campaign, but my loyalty isn't to them. My loyalty is to the workers in Ohio, to the American people, raising wages, bringing manufacturing back to this country, freeing workers from the grip of the global economy. That is my real fight. If some people don't want me to dismantle this system, they can shout louder, but he won't back down. Applause breaks out from parts of the audience, though murmurs of skepticism still linger in the background. Layton senses that Vance is on the defensive now, searching for the perfect moment to strike again. But the game has shifted. It's harsher, more ruthless. The cameras capture everything. The subtle beads of sweat forming on Vance's forehead. The sharp glint in Layton's eyes. This is no longer just an interview. It's a battle of ideologies. Is Vance truly fighting for the working class? Or is he moving in the shadow of corporate power? The answer isn't just in his words, it's in the eyes of the people watching. As the debate prepares to intensify, Layton gears up for his next attack. Who will win this night? The audience is no longer just a group of spectators, they're part of the verdict. The tension in the talk show keeps rising. The studio is silent, but the air is thick with anticipation. The audience leans forward in their seats, eyes locked on the two figures on stage. Now, it's time for one of the most heated topics of the night: immigration and border policy. Graham Layton takes a deep breath. He glances at his notes one last time, his expression hardening. Fixing his gaze on J.D. Vance, he raises his voice, emphasizing every word. Is the border crisis just a political tool for Republicans? Mr. Vance, you frequently advocate for strict immigration policies, but the U.S., whether in agriculture, construction, the service industry, or even tech, relies heavily on immigrant labor. Won't your policies grind the economy to a halt and push the country toward disaster? A few audience members nod, while others remain silent. Vance absorbs the weight of the question, but his face shows no hesitation. He leans forward slightly, commanding the room's attention as he responds, "Look, I'm not anti-immigrant, but we can't ignore the fact that illegal immigration hurts American workers. It drives wages down, increases crime rates, and overwhelms our social services. If we truly want a fair and sustainable system, we must put an end to illegal and uncontrolled migration." Layton doesn't miss a beat. He jumps in before Vance can finish, his tone sharper now. And the solution? You and your party have talked about border security for years, but where's the concrete plan? It's always about building walls. Is turning people away at the border enough? Or do you have a broader strategy? Vance was expecting this. He smirks slightly, placing his hand firmly on the table, his voice unwavering. Graham, we're not talking about stopping immigration entirely. The goal is control. Securing the border isn't just about physical barriers. Without strong border security policies, we can't maintain order. But that alone isn't enough. We need real reforms to work visa programs. Legal immigrants should contribute to our economy. But at the same time, we must crack down on drug cartels. Open borders don't bring solutions, they bring chaos. And the American people deserve security and stability, not chaos. Some in the audience applaud, while others murmur disapproval. Layton studies their reactions carefully, a skeptical expression forming on his face. This debate isn't over. Because this issue isn't just about politics, it's one of the greatest battles that will shape America's future. One thing is certain: the clash will only intensify. Will facts prevail, or ideology? No one knows yet. But what's clear is that this conversation will be remembered. This segment turns into one of the most heated debates between Leighton and Vance. The studio atmosphere grows tense, with the audience waiting in both curiosity and unease. Leighton brings up a sharp issue, his voice cutting through the silence with a more assertive tone. Mr. Vance, conservatives often claim that the media is biased. However, you and those you support are frequently accused of spreading misinformation. Do you truly want a fair media, or just one that backs your views? Vance offers a slight smile, but it's not one of amusement. His eyes grow serious, his voice firm and deliberate. The media should exist to inform the public, but today, many media outlets have turned into propaganda machines pushing only one political agenda. That's dangerous for a democratic society. What I want is a fair media. I want the people to see the full truth. Leighton narrows his eyes, his voice taking on a sharper edge. But you and your allies support pro-Trump media outlets. Do you admit they aren't objective either? Or is media bias only a problem when it doesn't favor you? Vance takes a deep breath. He knew this question was coming. He pauses for a moment, then shifts his gaze to the audience. Everyone has a perspective, can't deny that. But the real issue is this. If the media claims to be neutral, it should actually be neutral. Today, mainstream media operates like a machine designed to push a single viewpoint. When we challenge it, our voices are censored, our opinions are discredited. Is that democracy? Is that a fair media? We live in a system where only one side is allowed to be heard. A stir spreads through the audience. Some break into applause, while others murmur in disapproval. Leighton seizes the moment, his tone hardening. But don't the media outlets you support do the exact same thing? They spread false stories. They try to silence their opponents. So, how is your idea of media any different? Vance leans forward, his response sharp and unwavering. My idea of media is this. The people deserve the truth. The media should not be a tool for the powerful. Right now, major news organizations use all their influence to push a specific ideology. Anyone who disagrees is either silenced or discredited. But I'm here, and I will keep speaking the truth. No one can silence me. The studio crackles with energy. Cheers and applause mix with shouts of dissent from different corners of the room. The debate is far from over. No one, here, is willing to back down. As the final segment begins, the atmosphere in the studio shifts noticeably. The audience holds its breath, everyone anticipating the big question Leighton won't hesitate to ask. The most pivotal moment of the night has arrived, and Leighton wastes no time. His voice is clearer, sharper than ever. Mr. Vance, are you considering a run for president in 2028? For several seconds, the room falls into complete silence. A few audience members lean forward in anticipation, while the cameras zoom in on Vance's face. This question was inevitable. The very issue everyone was curious about but no one had dared to ask outright was finally on the table. Vance takes a brief moment to think. There is no hesitation in his expression. On the contrary, he looks like he's been expecting this, responding with a calm but confident demeanor. My priority right now is serving in the Senate and working for the American people. But in politics, nothing is set in stone. Who can say what the future holds? Leighton shoots him one of his signature sharp looks, nodding with a slight smirk. But he's not about to let go. Leaning in, he tightens his question. So, is that a yes? Excited murmurs ripple through the crowd. The cameras pan across the audience, catching glimpses of people whispering to each other. A few reach for their phones, already sharing the moment on social media. Vance lets the tension linger for just a second before responding with a subtle but loaded smile. It means, wait and see. And just like that, the room erupts. Thunderous applause and excited cheers fill the studio. Even some of the previously silent guests begin to react, clapping and voicing their excitement. Leighton leans back, weighing Vance's words, studying him with narrowed eyes. He wants more. But Vance knows how to play this game. The energy in the studio spreads like waves. Vance's calm yet assured expression doesn't waver. But there's something in his eyes, maybe a plan. Maybe the resolve of a politician who can already see the future unfolding. Leighton makes one final move, his voice measured and deliberate. If the circumstances align, if the people call for you, will you step up, Mr. Vance? Vance takes a deep breath. The question is direct, and his answer has to ignite something within everyone listening. He pauses, scanning the audience. He can feel every pair of eyes locked onto him. Then, he smiles, not just any smile, but one filled with strength, determination, and perhaps the voice of destiny itself. I'm here because I fight for my people. The future is uncertain, but one thing is clear: I will never turn my back. Wherever my people need me, I will be there. The applause that erupts this time is louder, stronger than before. In that moment, everyone in the room is thinking the same thing. This man is not just a senator. Perhaps a leader is being born. As the night draws to a close, Vance is no longer just another guest on a talk show. He is now a name moving toward becoming one of the most significant political figures of the future.